Alright, so let's walk through a dry run of the assembly of the Conan Brutal. So we'll start here with the base, and the only part with the base is the base itself and then this little column piece here. So if I drop the column piece in place, I really don't see any seam here whatsoever, so there's really no work to be done to that, and that just kind of tells me that it might be beneficial for me to just leave this part disconnected. Don't epoxy that in place. So I think that's exactly what I'll do, is I'll paint that as a separate item and possibly even put in a rare earth magnet here to help hold it in place once it is assembled. But like I said, there's no real need for me to actually epoxy that in place. So I'm going to leave that out. Now I'm also going to have a look here at the Conan piece. Now obviously I'm not going to epoxy him to the base either. I'm going to go ahead and set him in place though, because that helps me with the assembly of the other pieces. So he will be painted separate from the base. He will not be attached to the base, and perhaps while I'm painting, I may put in a protective barrier here, maybe something like a piece of a trash bag or cellophane over the base, and then put him, on the base through it. That way, whatever I'm painting on him, I don't get the overspray onto the base. Sometimes that works out, especially if I'm doing natural colors here. In the case of a faux bronze, that's really not as much of an issue. So, who knows? But in any case, he will be kept separate from the base, more for transportation purposes than anything else. Now, working our way up here, I'm just looking at what else do we have? Well, the little armored piece here that covers up his little cod piece. There's 3 little plates of armor here that's going to go up under here, and they lock into place really well. I'll go ahead and paint that and paint Conan himself here. I won't paint, obviously I'll keep the paint off of the ends here that will glue, but it's just this little tip right here that glues. So that will be epoxied into place. No need for that to be left unattached, but it will be epoxied after I have painted that area. The horns themselves, I'll probably go ahead and attach those, epoxy those. I won't pin them. The keys on these things are massive enough, so I think they'll be fine with a little bit of epoxy in there, and I'll just hold them right into place. No problems there. Then we come down to the weapons. In this case, not only just for paint purposes, but for assembly purposes, I am not going to permanently attach either the sword or the hand and shield on this particular side. The sword itself has a large pin, but then it also has a little metal pin here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that metal pin to my advantage. Inside Conan's leg here is a large hole. It's much larger than this pin. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a piece of tubing that is the same inner diameter as this pin, maybe a little bit smaller, and I'm going to put that inside of that hole, and I'm going to use that pin in the tube as a friction hold for this, because you can see as it is, me just placing it in there, it will stay in place for the most part. But the reason I won't attach this, not only maybe I can paint the underside of this, paint this as well, and then assemble it. Yes, I could glue that into place, but for me, I have to travel with this piece, and I just see this large hilt here and this large scabbard hanging off here as a potential, somebody pop this or something gets hit during transportation and just snapping that off. So I am not going to permanently attach that. So there's that. The shield itself and the hand for this side, I could attach the hand, I guess, and seam it up, but then I've got the shield to contend with. So I think what I'm actually going to do is take the shield and the hand, and once I paint these two, go ahead and assemble them and epoxy them permanently. That'll not only give me a good hold for this, but then I'll be able to seam up where the little handhold meets the shield. I'll be able to seam that up nice and clean. And then to attach this to Conan, I'm actually going to use a rare earth magnets, I think. I want to try that out. I think I can drill this out in a small, like an 1/8 inch diameter rare earth magnet, both here and up in the arm. I think will work great to just snap this right into place. Very little seaming work needs to be done here. I mean, it's almost perfect. I've got just a little bit I think I'll put right here on the edge of his arm, But I can do that before I attach anything, even before I paint anything. Obviously, get that seam work done until it looks just absolutely perfect the way I want, and then I'll go ahead and glue those parts together. Finally, we have the big battle axe here. Same process that I'm going to do for this arm, and once again, for the same reason I'm not attaching the sword on his hip, I am not going to permanently attach his arm here. I'm going to use the rare earth magnet to hold it in place. But, you know, this big head of this axe here, and then the tail just hanging way past Conan there, I think is going to be a potential problem for travel purposes. It might get twisted and snapped and broke off. So I think I'd rather just have that as a part that I can just detach using the magnets and put in a separate part of his container. Which leads me to maybe in addition to this is actually building a container to hold this statue once it's done. This particular statue, once I'm finished painting it, is going to be shipped to our factory. This will be used as the paint master for the faux bronze series on this. And so yeah, I've got to make sure it gets there all in one piece. So maybe that's something else we'll do, is show you how to build a custom container to hold your kits for travel purposes. So that's it, guys. I think I have a plan of attack here for how I want to assemble these parts and then paint them. And so we'll see how it goes. In the next video, we'll talk about some of the paints and various other things that I'll use to create this faux bronze effect.